Angel Air. My name is Anita Mayberry. Thank you so much for tuning in to this exact same moment, time, and place. We have a very dear friend and special guest on our show today, connecting us with her beautiful knowledge through experiences that she's written for us in this book, and it's Journey with Lydia, and it's called Healing in the Light. On today's show, Lydia is going to go ahead and share with us a little bit about her spiritual path and her path and journey that she's walked on, and how she got here today with us, and especially leaving us with something that is very helpful, healing, and insightful to those who have gone through experiences such as she has, and creating an environment and space where they can feel a healing energy or be able to relate, more importantly, that they might not have been the only one going through these experiences. And I think that's one of the most important things for our communities, to stick together and allow the support that's needed for those who are going through traumatical issues in their life, that they're not the only ones, that there are ways that they can work through this, and that they come to a place of peace and love in their life. And Lydia, it is a great honor to have you on our show today, so thank you so much for coming today. I'm so grateful and so appreciative to you.
Thank you, Anita. It's my pleasure to be here. And yeah, I always think that this journey was never meant to be done alone. And so anytime that we can reach out to people and lend a hand or lend some wisdom or experience that we've had, then that's the thing to do. And I will say just up front, when we talk about knowledge or wisdom, always preface that by saying that this is what I think and know now. And the energies and the wisdom and the knowledge coming into the planet are ever changing and ever expanding. And it's only my idea, and it's only in this moment. So if it's helpful, that's great. And if it doesn't resonate, that's great too. And that it could change tomorrow. I might learn something new tomorrow. So for what I have to share today, as far as the book is concerned, and as far as my spiritual journey, the way that I kind of look at it now is that I came in through a family. My soul chose, my spirit chose to come in through a family that was very what we would consider troubled. There was alcoholism, sexual abuse, depression, isolation, a really challenging environment, especially for children. But looking back, I see that it was the perfect breeding ground, or the perfect boot camp, some people call it, for doing healing work, because those experiences, there are things that I think we cannot help people with if we've only read about them. We really need to work through some things.
Absolutely.
And know it firsthand. So yeah, so I started to write the book about, gosh, now it's probably been about 30 years ago. And over the course of 25 years, tried to write the book just through my experiences, through healing, going from, one of the main things was going from isolation. When you live in a system that is abusive and has that dynamic going on, micro to macro, whether it's an individual, a family, or a culture, secrecy is really important, and keeping people divided, because if they know there are others who are going through it, there's strength in that, there's strength in numbers. But if you're kept separated, then there's more of a chance that those things can continue to happen. So isolation was a key part to my growing up, to my early adulthood even. And so one of the most beautiful things, and one of the things that I love that is in the book, is how I went from living in that isolation and that abuse and that situation to just a little bit at a time reaching out to people and expanding that until now I have this community that is outrageous with hundreds of people. And really, I will say most of my Facebook friends are actually friends, and so
there's a new splash.
Yeah, there you go.
I love that.
And I have a phone full of people who who I could literally call anytime, day or night, and they would show up and they would love me and they would be there for me. And that's something that, as a person who is living in abuse or trauma or isolation, I did not believe that was possible. And so part of the reason that I tell this story is that I want people to know that if you're living in that situation and you don't believe that it's possible, that it can be a different way, that it is possible. And it's amazing what happens when you just open that door a little crack and let someone in a little bit, and then it leads to more and more. But as far as writing the book, so I worked on it and I tried, and in my little human space, you know, and I would write and write and write, and then I would take it to someone, a therapist or someone, to kind of check on it. And it just was never right. It was either too traumatic, or it was gonna, you know, say things to people that they would need support to hear, and that kind of thing. So ultimately, the way the universe works, you know,
Yes.
joined a spiritual study group, thinking I would learn about Telosians and Lemurians and fifth dimensional ascended masters, living more in love and light. That was the bottom line. And what happened instead was that I started channeling, and I had never had any intention. It's not on any wish list anywhere in my life. But I found that if I didn't offer the information that was coming through, my throat would hurt and I would start to feel nauseated.
Wow.
It was really a push that this is what you need to be doing.
That's intense.
It was. And so after I got comfortable with that and realized after a couple of times when things came in that might have sounded really strange to me, about things that I would see that were physically affecting someone or emotionally affecting someone, and I would have that little bit of courage to say, okay, this is what I'm seeing. Does that make sense to you? And they would say, oh my gosh, that was my grandfather and this is what happened. And
Oh, wow.
so then I started to trust it. And so then the energy, what we would understand on the planet right now is the energy of Mother Teresa, came in and offered to help with the book.
Wow.
Yeah, and so
That's incredible.
yeah. So after about 25 years of trying as a little human in my own, with my own free will, you know, 3 months later, the book was finished and published.
Wow, that
So,
just gives me chills through my body.
yeah. So the other lesson for that in me was we're not alone with our other humans, but we're also not alone ever. And so whenever now I go to do anything that has any meaning at all, I'm going to ask for guidance. I'm going to ask for the wisdom of the universe. And still we are changing and growing. And so even though the book was perfect for itself when I wrote it a few years ago, and my publisher, who actually works mostly with light workers,
Oh, that's nice.
yeah, and
It's a
when
rarity.
it is. Oh, and actually, yeah, she used to be a psych nurse, so she used to spend time telling people not to listen to the voices in their head.
Oh my god.
And now she spends a lot of time saying, no, listen to the voices.
Over to the light side.
She did, and
bless
got
her.
the expanded vision of what was going on.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, but when she went to edit the book, she couldn't edit it. Her hands would go numb.
Really?
So yeah, so she got really clear really quickly that it was exactly as it was meant to be. But now time goes on, or something happens if there's no time.
Yeah.
And we're in a different place, and there's an expanded awareness, and so life has changed dramatically for me since the book was
I can
finished.
only imagine too, because when you put that energy out here and it's in a concrete form,
Yeah.
you know, big changes in your life are going to happen, and
They
you might not be
are.
ready for every single one of them, but you'll slowly evolve into those spaces where you can, you know, slowly integrate that energy, and
Absolutely.
that's amazing.
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so the book, if you page through it, you'll see there's highlighting going on in there because the book is being reworked to be more updated. One of the issues that people who grow up in an environment like I did have is to connect a little too much to the people around them and kind of lose boundaries and that. And so one of the things, the focus will come back more to me and my story, and not so much the people I was with.
Wow.
But yeah, but even if you see it in this form, what I love about it is just that story of going from victim, isolation, and that to trusting, to opening up, and then the miracles that happen after that happens are just incredible.
Oh, I
To
can
learn
feel it.
that, you know, we can trust people and they can be there for us.
I love that message too, because you know, even talking about that a little bit earlier, it's like even with spiritual experiences or physical experiences, mental, emotional experiences, when you're in a group and you're able to connect with people all around, that each one has a little bit of a different story, but the intent of being there with their soul is the same. It's amazing the compassion that goes through and the healing that takes place from that. It's like, wow.
Yeah, it's so powerful. And I like doing decrees. Yeah, anything that we do, if we do decrees or prayers or whatever practice we have, it's beautiful when we do it alone, but when we do it in a group, it multiplies exponentially. And the impact is so much bigger.
They always say like 2 minds and 2 heads are better than one. It's the same thing as a group. You know, you have like 10 people in a group, that's like times 1,000, you know, that times power of the energy of the healing for everybody, and expanding their hearts and their minds, their souls, their spirits, and allowing them to walk on their path with much more ease and grace and understanding.
Yes, exactly. And that's part of what this has morphed into, what this has brought into me.
I like that you said morph. I love that.
Okay.
I love morphing.
I do
Morphing
too.
is a lot of fun.
Oh, yes.
Check it out in the spiritual realm. So I just had to put that out there. I love it.
Nice, nice. Yeah, so it has morphed into the opening with Mother Teresa, or that energy, because I've done some past life regression work where I see something else that we may not be able to even define, that on the other side, there's really one energy, and it's just this big love energy. And so I have a sense that they let us break them down into identifiable parts so we can wrap our tiny little human brains around that concept. So maybe there's Mother Teresa, but after that happened, then more and more energies or masters started to come in and bring information in that. And one of the things that happened was I went to a friend's therapy office to meet him for lunch.
Oh, wow.
And a young woman who had had a serious trauma, and he was the first person she was able to share it with, had gone earlier. And I walked in, and you know, you can feel that energy. There's some trauma, or there's someone had a fight, something like that.
It's like you can smell it.
Yeah. And so I thought, well, I'll clear it while he goes to the restroom. And with that, and that's when the energies of Mother Mary and Kuan Yin came in for me. And I literally felt them pour love and compassion into the room. My hands came on a very specific way. When he came back, they had me put my hands on his head, and that energy very specifically came out and went in and diffused into his body. And so that just opened up another whole realm for me, where another one of my guides, a human guide, said, you're supposed to be doing this. And so I started offering it to people, and that has formed a community of people who show up. We did new moon and full moon gatherings for a while. We have a gathering this Friday, and people have shown up who, very often there's one person in a family who's sort of awake and kind of knows what's going on, or kind of wants to know what's going on.
They're the cutest.
They are. And so they'll come and they'll say, this is going to sound crazy. And I go, good luck with that, because it's probably not going to. But this may be the first safe space they've had to express something that sounded crazy to everyone else they know. They're either seeing things, or they're getting guidance, or they're feeling very intuitively. And so we're finding this community, probably well over 100 people now, where everyone can come together.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, and just be safe and know what they know and hear what they hear, and be held in that safe container. It's beautiful.
And there's something else about providing a safe space and place, because it's almost like going into a room where there's nothing but coziness and, you know, the love and the warmth that you feel. When you feel that energy, it's like your soul sinks into that energy, and it's like, it's gonna be okay.
Exactly.
It's gonna be all right. And then when you hear other people talking about those experiences, and then they're thinking in their head, is it okay to say something? Am I gonna be all right? And then that safe feelings comes back, and you're like, yeah, I can go ahead and talk about that. It's gonna be okay.
Right.
I love that. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
And it's very often something we didn't plan. As
Exactly.
facilitators, you know, we set a safe space and then we're open to whatever comes in, and then we have to let go of it.
Exactly.
And just being in that sacred space, like you said, that's enough. Just knowing that it's safe here, I can breathe, I can be who I need to be. It may not ever look like I expect it to look before an event happens, but everyone gets what they need just by being in that loving energy.
And it's funny too, because even when people might leave a sacred space or circle and people might be showing that they're feeling something, they might not feel it right at that moment. There will be a time where something will happen at their right time.
Right.
And then they'll just expand and open up, and it could be a week later and they burst into tears crying, and here's this huge thing that just came up off of them, and they're like, wow, where did that come from? You know?
Right.
And then
Oh,
the wheel starts spinning, and they're like, wait, maybe it came from that group, maybe it came from that experience.
Exactly. And the same with integrated imagery. I do that, which can be past life regression, or if you don't understand that there is no time and that we have multiple lines going on at the same time, it might be an alternate life reality. But that can happen there as well. You know, you do the piece and something comes to the surface consciously, but later the body and the mind and the spirit catch up with that, and the real deep release happens, or it takes time to integrate. You know, we live in a culture where very often the commercial culture wants everything to be quick and easy.
Yes.
You know, sitcoms last a half hour, you get the problem, you get the solution, and we're done.
Yeah.
And this path where people are waking and they're conscious and they really want to understand and grow, it takes time. It takes time to let things integrate and percolate and them really understand them.
I agree with you on that. It's a continuation of the consciousness, like really moving forward, but at your own pace and place, you know.
Yeah.
It's interesting too, because, you know, when people ask about, you know, receiving healings and stuff like that, they're like, well, am I going to see this? Am I going to see that? It's all in divine timing.
Right.
You know, there's that word
Right.
timing again, but all in the divineness of when you're ready to really receive it in your heart's in that place and space, you can be open and allow that to come in. So
Right, and we
absolutely.
can ask. I always say we can always
Always
ask.
ask. You might be surprised at what package it comes in, or what color or shape, but it will arrive on your doorstep at just the right moment.
Yeah, and sometimes something looks like it's not connected to what we were asking for, and then later you go, oh, I needed this before I got to that. I had an experience probably 30 years ago that was a seed. Sometimes they're just seeds that get planted, and they don't grow for years and years. And I was in a health food store in Delaware, and I heard these two women talking, and I really honestly thought they were crazy, because I didn't have any frame of reference for the spiritual practice or metaphysical things. And they were talking about another friend who would walk down the sidewalk, and she would pick everyone's stuff up, and then she would feel terrible. And they said all she needs to do is open the top of her head and let it come out, and she'd be fine. I ran out of the store. I literally had no idea what they were talking about, and I was afraid of them. But so that's a beautiful thing for me to remember, is that that seed was planted. When I heard it again 15 years later in a feng shui class, I went, oh wait, I remember this. They weren't crazy, I just didn't understand it. So, and it works for me too when we're talking about a concept that we understand and someone who's relatively new doesn't understand. It's like, it's okay.
Yeah.
We're just planting a seed.
Yeah.
It'll
When you're ready,
come
it'll
back
sprout.
later. Yeah.
And it'll flourish. So Lydia, I'd also like to ask you for our viewers, any important messages or anything that you would like to, you know, dial in on that, you know, if somebody's coming across their path or they've had some real hardships in their life, like really deep, embedded, hardcore. Yes. If there's anything you can share with them, because, you know, we have all different walks of life tune into this lovely station.
Sure.
And I think it's really important that they know that there are ways and avenues that they can walk through, and that it will be okay.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I would say is really, I've had a couple of people in my family commit suicide, I will say that. And so we have a real extreme example of someone who could not keep asking for help and believed that there was nothing else that could be done. And so my first message is just keep reaching out. you know, and you're looking at me and Anita, and we look fine. I love Anita, and this is one of my favorite things to do. So you're seeing me shiny and happy because this is one of my favorite things to do. I have my moments where I'm still in a deep pit of despair, or a new thought comes in and I'm confused, or there's a challenge in my life that's overwhelming. We all have those moments, no matter what we look like. And so one of the things that I learned in a 12-step program was to not compare my outsides or my insides to someone else's outsides. You don't know what people are going through. And so I try not to use that facade that I see on someone else to make myself feel bad, because I don't feel as good as they look. And so that's one thing, is just keep reaching out to people, because there is always another modality. There's always another herbal remedy or homeopathic or a stone or crystal or some other kind of modality that can be tried that you may not have heard of yet. I had a very dear friend who had beautiful sons, grown sons, who committed suicide because he was in chronic pain. I know something that could help with that, and it broke my heart to think, if he had just asked one more person, what can I do with this chronic pain, he may have still been with us.
Wow.
So, and there are other things about shame and guilt, and if you are carrying a burden of shame or guilt, or for something that happened to you as a child or something you've done in this lifetime, I believe we've all come in as a victim, as a perpetrator, and as a witness. And so we've all done all of those things. There's no assignment of guilt or shame. We're here to have an experience. And so the more we can just let go of those labels and let go of that intensity and just ask someone for help. The isolation. I had one good friend who was willing to stick with me for some years until I could reach out and get another friend. And I will say, in the beginning, I carried a phone number around for a woman for about a month before I could work up the nerve to call her.
Really?
Yeah, so if that sounds familiar, you're not the only one. Yeah. And then when I finally did call, I did this dance, which a lot of us are so familiar with. Please let the answering machine answer. Please let the answering machine answer.
I have felt that, yes. I fully admit this. There have been times where I absolutely say, message machine, please.
Yeah, it's life, but then when I finally did connect with her, it was beautiful, and she was so kind and loving. So many times when we come from a background of some kind of trauma, we forget, or we don't even know, that people can be loving and kind. And most people love to be asked to help. And they're right there and willing to connect with people. So, that's another thing, is to just take a little tiny risk to call someone and let them help you.
I really liked your message with the isolation part, because a lot of times when you think that there's nobody else around, or nobody's paying attention, or nobody's this or nobody's that, there's just something that, might set off inside of your head or in your heart that says, it's gonna be okay. It's gonna be all right. You can make the phone call. And I think it's great for your support, sharing that with them, that if they're feeling that way and they feel like they're all alone, and you feel that way, that there's somebody that's just waiting for you.
Yeah, and it's also about the circle of giving, whether it's receiving a physical gift, a monetary gift, emotional, spiritual gift. I love this idea that someone shared with me. If I don't receive, then I rob the other person of having someone to give to.
Yeah, somebody just said that the other day. I heard that, and I loved that. I was like, oh my God, that makes amazing sense. Like, I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
And I have a soul sister who just demonstrated it beautifully for me. So instead of, my family of origin was like, no thank you. You have to say no thank you at least 4 times before you can accept something. And to not be a burden. We don't ever want to be a burden to someone. As if interconnectedness and depending on each other for our lives is a burden. That's just not. But this soul sister taught me to just say yes, thank you. What a different life it is. So now my first instinct when someone offers me something is to say yes, thank you. And then watch them and how they light up that they got to offer something.
And you accept it. Yeah. And it's like you've made their day.
Yeah, it's really awesome. And these may sound like, okay, what does that have to do with a spiritual path? But really that is, my spirituality is not about going to a certain building on a certain day and saying certain things. I literally, as much as I can in this human form with angelic help and all the help I can get, live in that spirituality in every minute. So the way that I respond to someone who offers me something or asks me for something or that I bump into on the street, that's the spirituality that's important to me. That's what makes my life what it is.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And sometimes really painful, and even that has a beauty to it.
It does.
I feel like at the end of my life, when I look back over it, I'll understand, even from spirit form, that even the excruciating pain had some beauty to it, that we were just able to be here in human form was such a beautiful trip. So.
Oh, all this is just hitting home into the heart, Lydia. I'm just like overwhelmed with all the beauty and compassion that you have that's in you and everything that you've gone through and your experiences that you've experienced and being able to give somebody a beautiful read, you know, and again, I will repeat it, creating that outlet they can go into and know that they're not the only ones.
Yeah, and when you said compassion, it really rung in my ears that one of the things most families that have some dysfunction and our culture at large, we are not taught a lot of compassion for ourselves.
That's very true.
There's a lot of judgment. If I make a mistake, oh, look at me, I'm such an idiot. Mm-hmm. That was normal for me, and so when I started to be around people who weren't that way or didn't speak that way, it was stunning to me that there was a different way and that language actually hurt me. And so, you know, you can look at Dr. Emoto and the water studies that he did and how language affects the water. We're 90-some% water. So if we're walking around all day calling ourselves names and that, then that's what we're doing to our cells of our body. But even more than that, when we learn to flip that over and say, you know, I'll go, oh, I love me, you know, or if the little inner child in me has fear or whatever, instead of berating myself now, it can be, okay, sweetheart, what do you need? And so we can learn a kind and gentle and compassionate way to live in ourselves. That just makes it more natural to be more kind and compassionate with other people. So
that gives me a breath of fresh air. Thank you, sweetheart. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And you know, of course, these are from teachers and mentors and guides I've had. I've been so blessed with people in my path who have offered me wisdom and guidance with such generosity. And you know, I have one teacher who is brilliant and evolved, but still has times when the old brain kicks in and a response is not what she would love it to be. And she says, oh, look at me, aren't I fascinating still doing that? You know, how great is that? There's no shame or guilt in that.
Oh, that's great.
It's just true.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. So I feel like that's what we do, is just learn from the women or men ahead of us, the spirits, the angels, whoever we can learn and grow from, and then pass it on to people who are waking up and looking for guidance.
Oh,
it's beautiful.
It's beautiful. It's so beautiful. Well, my beautiful Lydia, thank you so much for coming on Angel Air today and just, you know, shedding your love, your light, your healing, your knowledge, your wisdom, your experiences with us, and just creating a space for all our viewers today to know that if they need to reach out, that this is definitely a message for them to absorb and sit with. And you know, we mentioned before between you and I that if we are able to help one person along the way, that our journey was definitely worth it. And I know that I would do it in a heartbeat all over again, because it does make a difference, and you do make a difference, and they will also make differences in other people's lives.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It's a delight to be with you.
Thank you, sweetheart. I love you so much. You're just fantastic. Well, Angel Air viewers, I just want to say thank you so much for tuning in to today's beautiful creative connection. And if you are in a bookstore or able to go online, you got to check out this book if the messages that Lydia shared with us today resonate. I really feel it'll really help you and guide you to a more happy and peaceful place in your life. And I just think that's fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you, dear. Well, there you have it, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. May you always be beautiful, blessed, and loved. Thank you, and take good care.